Hey guys, here I'm bringing you some magic, and today got a nice little draft going. Battle for Zendikar, of course, that's the current format. And out of the first pack, there's not really too much that's very exciting. Probably Wind Rider Patrol is the most exciting card. It is quite strong once you actually get it out and start hitting people with it. It's a little susceptible to some of the removal spells in the format, but it's really not too bad. And if you do start hitting, I mean, it's very quick by the time they actually die from it. The other kind of strong cards are, well, Shambling Vent's a couple of tickets, but whatever. Incubator Drone's not bad. Ondu Rising's pretty good too. Colostry Healer, Valakut Predator. You know, I mean, there's some decent enough cards in the pack. Then getting past this one is kind of interesting. There is Angel of Renewal, which is quite a strong card, and would work well in a blue-white Flyers deck, which is one of my favorite archetypes in the format. There's also an Eldrazi Sky Spawner, and I think I'm a little bit more inclined to take that right now. I do think the card is worse than Angel of Renewal, but jumping into a second color already might not be as fruitful for me. If I take two blue cards earlier, I'm more likely to be able to play both of them, whereas if I take Angel of Renewal now, there's a good chance that I don't end up in both. That being said, if I take Eldrazi Sky Spawner, there is still a solid chance that I don't end up in blue at all, and I don't get to play either of them. So in that sense, I'm kind of hedging my bets by taking Angel of Renewal, but I'll keep my options a little bit open, and hopefully blue plus something else might be open. The only thing that's leading me towards Angel of Renewal is that Winnower Patrol is best in a blue-white deck, so there is a solid chance that I end up there. That being said, out of this pack, there's not too much that's really that good. This is kind of around when you would be taking Colostry Healers for the black-white deck, especially if you could pick up a couple of them. That being said, Rune Processor isn't really something that I would love to see. Ulamog's a spoiler, same. I'm going to go ahead and pick up I mean, I could take like a Rune Processor or an Ulamog's a spoiler. Probably Rune Processor I'd like a little bit better. And then kind of slowly and try and maneuver into a blue-black or a blue-red deck with some ingest going on. But I think I'm going to take Lantern Scout. I like this card a little bit more. I don't know, it would be nice. There's definitely a couple of allies that I can throw into the blue-white deck, and just being able to gain a touch of life is really strong because it usually ends up being a pretty tempo-based deck that a couple of life points can really swing a race that you're winning with your Flyers. So I do like the card in that deck and would be pretty happy to pick it up if I end up playing that deck. And out of this pack, I'm thinking Malakir Familiar is probably my best bet. There's a few green cards, but if you've been paying close enough attention to kind of the ideas behind what the pros are drafting, and a lot of mid-level players do, it's not just the top pros are gathering this, but green really isn't good in this format. So the default perspective that a lot of mid-tier players have is, well, if everybody else is saying green isn't good in this format, then I should jump into green and I'll be the only one drafting. Well, the real problem with that is that you don't know, and there's almost no way to tell if there's nobody else at your entire table drafting. There might be somebody who's a couple of picks to your left who you can't really see the signs in the first pack. And then the other thing is that there's really just so few green cards that are actually going to be good in whatever deck you end up building that you might not even hit your playable count, even if you are the only one in green, or you might not hit a playable count of the right cards. I mean, just remember the Fairy Miscreant deck that never ended up happening. It's not because everybody was hate drafting Fairy Miscreants. It's because it's really not that likely for you to open 5 Fairy Miscreants. So if you're relying on one common, which the green aggressive decks really do for snapping Gnarlid, and I don't know, maybe the green-black Sacrifice deck is really looking for Eyeless Watchers and stuff like that, then you just run into the problem that there are just so few commons that are actually good in your deck that you don't end up with enough playables. That's my green spiel for now. Ondu Rising is pretty good, and it'll be good in a black-white life gain deck. It'll also be good in a blue-white Awaken / Control / Flyers deck. Wow, okay, so white still looks like it's pretty open, and I'm going to keep that train rolling. I don't think Turn Against is actually much better than Courier Griffin or Sheer Drop, which is pretty funny. Class 3 Night Watch is pretty good. I would like Sheer Drop better in my blue-white deck, but Courier Griffin... But I'd probably like Courier Griffin better in the black-white deck. I think it's pretty close either way. And nobody would really fault anyone for taking one over the other. But taking another white card is nice to stay open. And after my first two cards were blue, I kind of wish I had that Angel of Renewal, and then I would really be in a good spot to jump into a black-white deck, but instead I am where I am. Okay, so there's a Myers Malice, which is fine. I think I'm going to take the Sandstone Bridge here. Myers Malices, you can pick up more of them. Well, actually, I'm going to take the Myers Malice. It's a good card, and I mean, I have one Awaken card already, but if I'm in black-white, then that's going to be my only expensive card as of yet. And the Sandstone Bridge is a nice effect to have, especially when you have flyers, especially like Courier Griffin, which can still block pretty well. But yeah, you can usually pick up a couple of those by the end of the draft. This is actually a pretty tough pick because I kind of have to decide. Well, I guess I could just take the white card, which will probably make my deck either way. It's just not very good in any of the decks that I would play. Or I could take Rush of Ice, which is a solid enough blue card that might make my deck, but it is pretty bad. I mean, neither of these two cards are really where I want to be, but I guess I'll take the white card because I think I'm more likely to be in white than I am to be in blue. Take another Andu Rising. I mean, I'm pretty happy to play this card. It really does a lot of good things for my deck. Doesn't really matter. None of these cards are very good. Barely playable even. So yeah, I mean, after the first two cards were blue, I didn't see much. I picked up a Malakir Familiar kind of in the middle of the pack, which is pretty good for it. It's not like the Calastria Healers tabled or anything, so I'm not really thinking that black-white ally life gain kind of deck is wide open, but I mean, I'll look into it. I guess I'll take the Skyline Cascade. Bone Splinters really is not a card unless you're in the green-black deck, which, as I mentioned earlier, I don't even like very much, so... I guess I have two green cards. I have Oran Reef Invoker and Marasa Ranger, so I can try and move into green-white nothing, because that archetype is not really supported. What it actually is green-white tokens and cards like Inspired Charge, and I mean, you can really tell by the uncommon, the green-white thing that makes allies, and then stuff like Tajura Warcaller and Tajura Beastmaster are supposed to go in that green-white deck, but it just doesn't really pan out. There isn't a good enough token maker that wants to put you in that spot. So from this pack, there are some really good green cards, but I'm not really sure what to take because there's no white card. I mean, these are the only two white cards that I consider playing, Blighted Step and Lithomancer's Focus. I probably should take Blighted Step, but I definitely want to move into green after my whole green spiel at the beginning of the draft. I could take a Wavewing Elemental, which would be playable if I ended up in blue. It wouldn't be good, but it would be playable. I'm going to take the Blighted Step. I think this card is the most likely card to make my deck out of everything here. I do want to kind of deprioritize lands and prioritize like mediocre playables at some point, because I still am unsure what colors I'm going to be in, which means that I'll probably be a little bit light on playables at some point. But the thing that I'm scared of is that blue is going to be completely cut again in the last pack. So, well, a color being completely cut is kind of rare, especially if it's blue-white, because there are just so many cards that I'm actually happy to pick up. And Tightening Coils is just such a good card in the deck that I'm trying to build, and there really isn't much else in here that I would want. I mean, I would play a Core Castigator. It's not my ideal 2-drop. I'd probably rather have Fortified Ramparts. And it doesn't really do much for the life gain deck, and I'm kind of a little bit late in the draft to already be picking up life gain stuff. I mean, I have like a couple of things that do life gain, but not really the way you want. It's not those incremental turn after turn life gain repeatable effects. So yeah, I'm going to take the tightening coils here. I just don't see a great alternative, so I'll go with that. Alright, so here there's a couple options. Blue has the best one in Clutch of Currents. There's the white card in Royal's Retribution, which is okay, not great. I thought it would be a lot better than it was. I mean, when you compare it to a card like... what's that card called that I'm trying to think of? Wow, okay, whatever. It usually compares favorably when you can divide damage up, but when you have to restrict it to cards that are attacking or blocking, usually the cards that have 1 or 2 toughness that you want to kill aren't going to be entering in combat all the time. So it ends up being about a 1-for-1 and sometimes a 2-for-1, and sometimes you end up with a huge tempo loss by just holding this up and your opponent just decides not to attack that turn. Anyway, I'm going to take Clutch of Currents here. Even if I only get like this half of a pack of blue cards, and then my first pick and probably a second pick blue card out of the next pack that can be strong, I think that'll be enough. The deck is again, it's pretty... You can go a lot of different directions and still find enough cards to build a pretty decent deck. Plus, it doesn't look like the black-white life gain deck is really anywhere on the map here. I'll take a Stonehaven Medic after I say that I don't really want a life gain deck. I don't mind this guy in the blue-white deck anyway. He's a 2-drop that I can play. He'll gain me some life, which is again is pretty nice. Even if your 2-drops become a little bit irrelevant, at least he can save you a bit of life. And Merc Strider is not likely to be turned on, though I would really like to play a card like that if I could actually gain the effect from it. Well, Tide Drifter is kind of great. Normally I would be considering a card like Spawning Bed, but I already have a Blighted Step, and I already mentioned earlier that since I wasted a couple of picks on black cards, I might actually need the playables at some point in the draft. I don't really want something like Kozilek's Channeler just because it's a 5-drop. I do like this card, but I already have these 3 cards that are stacked up on 5. But yeah, I mean, picking up a nice defensive card like Tide Drifter is pretty awesome here. Okay, I'm happy to find a Cloud Manta here. Again, Merc Strider is not where I want to be. I don't have any enablers yet, and I don't really think I'm going to pick many up in just blue. I already passed a couple of Mist Intruders this pack. I don't ideally want a Benthic Infiltrator, but it's not the end of the world if I pick one up. And then, of course, there's the 2 lands in Blighted Cataract and Sandstone Bridge. I don't really want another colorless land, and Sandstone Bridge would be nice in the deck, but I want to pick up a couple more playables first. So I can safely get rid of this Mortuary Mire. Alright, I'll take a Ghostly Sentinel. As I mentioned, I don't really want many more 5s, but I do really like this card in the deck. And I don't love a Combat Trick, and I don't love this guy as my 2-drop. I'd rather have the defensive 2-drops than the aggressive 2-drops. And then there's Dispel for the sideboard, which is definitely a consideration, but as I guess as we move a little bit further in, I sort of am hitting that playable count, but even so, sometimes you don't really get there. So Ondu Greathorn is interesting because sometimes this deck does want to be a little bit aggressive. At the same time, it usually likes to be aggressive in the air. I'm going to take the Ondu Greathorn here. Again, well, actually, I'll take the Blighted Cataract. There's a chance that I'll want to sideboard it in. If I end up with all these 5s, then... And I think I'd rather play the Blighted Step than the Cataract in this deck, but there's definitely a chance that I'll bring it in out of the sideboard against if I'm on the play and I want to make sure that I have all my lands and I can side in a 19th land, and this is definitely a good one to have as the 19th. Whatever. Wow, look at all these red cards. This is quite a strong pack for red. I didn't really see much red open. I don't think I did. Maybe I was just missing it. So going into the 3rd pack, I'm kind of happy. I only have 1 Clutch of Currents. I could use another expensive flyer at the top of my curve, but that's okay. I don't have any of the strong white removal. I don't have any Gideon's Reproaches, So definitely missing some things. I'm at about the amount of playables that I want. I ideally can substitute out Lithomancer's Focus and Greathorn for good cards, but it doesn't seem like it's going to happen. So we're on the lower end of the playability count, just because it's not like my colors have been extremely open, and I did mess with some black earlier. So perhaps not the greatest start to a draft, but we're in a position where I'll probably actually get to enough playables. There's also McKindy Patrol here that I don't love. I don't hate McKindy Patrol. I don't know. It's annoying because there's stuff like Coldsley Sentinel and Wind Rider Patrol that if they were allies, then something like Lantern Scout would be great. But so as it stands, since I ended up in blue-white, I'm really just as happy with Eldrazi's Sky Spawner as I would have been with the Angel of Renewal at the top of the curve. So yeah, I'm in a good spot. And of course, there's very little point in playing Angelic Gift. I could just use it to cycle, but my creatures almost all have flying. I guess Ondu Greathorn doesn't have flying, and it'd be nice to get him in the sky. But Tide Drifter, become a better blocker. Stonehaven Medic, sure, pecking in for one in the air. And I guess there's a couple of 3-drops too. So there are a few cards that I wouldn't mind making flyers, and then I guess my lands, if I made them flyers. So maybe an Angelic Gift can get in there and be a valuable member of the team. So here we have our choice between Benthic Infiltrator and the deck that doesn't really need processing or ingesting, Incubator Drone as a pretty good way to gum up the ground, or Shadow Glider, early way to add pressure. So between those three, I think I'm going to eliminate Benthic Infiltrator and focus on Incubator Drone or Shadow Glider. Incubator Drone, I think, is a better card in general, but we're already well into pack 3, where it really just matters what context you need the cards in rather than how good they are in a vacuum. So I'm going to go with Shadow Glider. I don't have any Devoid synergies. I don't have a need for a ton of mana, though it is nice to have the extra spawn lying around so I can actually hit my 5th mana pretty consistently. But I think I'll go with the Shadow Glider here. I wouldn't fault anyone for going either way, but just the 2/2 flyer for 3 is solid enough in a deck like this. So here I have the option between Anticipate and Cloud Manta. I guess there's also a Spell Shrivel here. I'm going to go with Cloud Manta. I could cut the Ondu Greathorn, so I don't mind picking up another 4-drop, and it adds to my flying count, which is nice. I don't have too many things to do on turn 2. I really have Stonehaven Medic and Tide Drifter for now, so picking up a Anticipate is nice, even if it's not turn 2. If it's like turn 5 and I have a 3-drop and I also want to play something, and it's nice to just have a whole bunch of things at different mana costs that you can just start working toward. Alright, so I'm going to take a Fortified Rampart here over a Courier Griffin. I do have a few 4s already, and as I was just mentioning, I am sort of lacking the 2-drops in the 2-drop area. This is just a strong pack in general. Drana's Emissary, Nettle Drone. I guess that's really it, but I mean, I wouldn't mind putting a Courier Griffin in the deck, another one in the deck, but I'm happy to pick up a Fortified Rampart. That's really one of the things that I would want to be doing right now. Definitely coming together. The deck lacks power level, but I mean, when you have flyers and ways to gain life, and not too many, but like a tempo card like this, then it's not too bad without too much power. I could take another Cloud Manta think I'm going to, because I'm only at 19 playables and there are a couple of cards that I'd like to cut. I would really like a Sandstone Bridge in the deck, but for now I'm going to take this Cloud Manta and see where that takes me. I also could take a Core Castigator, but it's not really the way I want to be winning games. Then again, it is another ally to trigger my Lantern Scout, which for now, by the way, Lantern Scout is essentially Ondu Rising. It's just creatures you control gain lifelink until the end of turn, and then, I don't know, there's like the one McKinty Patrol that can also trigger it, and maybe I'll pick up something like a Core Blade Roller or Core Castigator or something like that. Overall, I don't love this deck. I do really love picking up a Sheer Drop here. It definitely helps out with my removal problem. It also gives me something all the way at the top of the curve, which when you're playing 18 lands, you kind of do want something up there. Even though I do have all these 4s and all these 5s, it is nice to pick up a flexible 3/6 drop. This is definitely one of the cards that you really don't mind. You're fine if you play it for 3. Some of the Awaken cards, for instance, Clutch Recurrence, you're pretty upset if you have to play it for 1, but Sheer Drop is fine. I'll take a Waveling Elemental. I like the card quite a bit, and as I mentioned, I don't mind having a 6-drop or 2 when I'm playing 18 lands. Maybe I'll just play 19 lands in this deck. I guess I am at 22 playables, but as I mentioned, I'm happy cutting the Angelic Gift and the Ondu Greathorn. So if I cut both of those, then I could just pick up one more playable, and then there we go. Fortified Rampart number 2. So that's like my third 05. I'm gonna cut the Angelic Gift and consider cutting the Ondu Greathorn for a 19th land, which is kind of funny because he's definitely one of the creatures that wants a lot of lands and is happy of it, but I just don't need to be attacking on the ground. I'm very rarely going to get in on the ground, so it doesn't really make sense for me to do that and for me to play an Ondu Greathorn in the deck. The only kind of thing that it would be cool with is I play an Ondu Rising the next turn, hit for 5, or hit for 4, gain 4 life, that kind of thing. Also, a card that I could cut, Lithomancer's Focus. It's not bad because my opponent is going to try and trade. Wow. Okay, so there's another Blighted Step, which I already have 2 Blighted lands. I think I'm going to take the sideboard Felidar Cub here, but there are 4 cards that I wouldn't mind having access to somewhere in the deck. Yeah, so Felidar Cub isn't really, he's not really looking to get in on the fun right away, but I mean, also Stonehaven Medic is another card that I could cut, so there are definitely a few cards on the chopping block that I wouldn't mind cutting for a 19th land. Not really sure exactly where I want to go, though. Nothing here. Hate draft this Clastria Healer. It's not like the card is incredibly amazing or anything, but it's probably the best card in the pack. Yeah, none of these cards are very good either. I guess I could have taken a Scour from Existence from my sideboard. Probably should have taken that. It's not like hitting a Grave Birthing is really going to hurt anyone. May as well take the card that you can actually cast. See, I have a lot of average to powerful cards, but it's not like this deck is filled with Noyandars or Planar Outbursts or anything like that. So definitely some weaknesses. Also, Tide Drifter kind of does combo with Awakened cards, because 4 power, like a 4 mana or 5 mana 4/4 is a lot worse than a 5 mana 4/5. So it's nice to have 4 Awakened cards to go with my Tide Drifter. Even here I get my Scour from Existence. All 3 of these cards were in 2 packs ago, by the way. Just saying. Also goes with my 1 Devoid card, which was the Eldrazi Sky Spawner. Didn't end up picking up that Incubator Drone, which was fine. Yeah, I mean, the deck's fine. It's not anything super impressive, but I think we can actually cut the Stonehaven Medic for a 19th land. I'll play Tandem Tactics over Lithomancer's Focus as well. Just because you don't usually need the extra point of power, and I mean, I guess it's useful. Most of my creatures aren't really going to be doing damage against Devoid creatures because there aren't that many Devoid creatures that can block my flyers. So, alright, so I'm going to play 19 lands, including both of these Blighteds, and that should be pretty awesome. I mean, you can kind of consider this one just as a spell. It's like just a big draw spell kind of thing, and a lot of my cards are expensive, either 4 or 5 mana, so I'm pretty happy to be adding on to them. And I'm also pretty happy that I kind of deprioritized those lands because I really did need to pick up playables. I ended up with a couple extra ones, and maybe it would have been worth it for me to not take a Fortified Rampart and have a Sandstone Bridge and have to play the Stonehaven Medic instead, but I don't know. I am pretty happy with my decisions in this draft and where I ended up. I didn't really see too many powerful cards. There were a couple of decent ones. Maybe if I were in red, I'd have slightly more powerful deck, but that's just not really where the cards took me early on. I don't know. So 8. I think I'd rather have one more white source than blue source. And I already have the Skyline Cascade, so it should work. 9/8. 2 colorless lands. Alright, cool. Yeah, I'll see you guys in the first round. We'll see how this... I think it's actually my first 19 land deck. So, yeah, we'll see how that works out. Hey guys, won the die roll here for round 1, and I have a hand of cards that will play a game of Magic for me. I don't have any 2-drops, 3-drops, or 4-drops, but hopefully I'll draw something. I have Skyline Cascade to buy me a little bit of time. Normally you want to play your tap lands early, but with a hand like this, there's a good chance that if my opponent plays a 2-drop, I'll want to just lock it down. I don't really want him to play a 2-drop, but do what you gotta do. That's a little bit awkward. Because next turn... Yeah, alright, I'm just gonna play this now. It is definitely awkward, but I want to make sure that I can hit my 5th land on turn 5. And next turn I want to be playing the Courier Griffin anyway, so... Alright. I'm overall happy that I drew a 4-drop to play, but it'd be super awkward if I draw a 3-drop right now. Yeah, I'm curious about what my exact play should be. Because if I just don't trade... No, I can't really take 12 damage. Yeah, it's worth trading. But, I mean, if you think about it, if my line of play here is next turn play Windrider Patrol, and then the next turn I can Ondu Rising, it's still probably worth playing here. And I'm going to block the McKindy Siderunner. It's a little bit worse if he has a combat trick, because he gets to push through the damage anyway. But what can you do? And he still has a creature. Huh, that's rough. Alright, so I did hit my next land drop, which means that I'm going to be playing the Windrider Patrol here, because I'm going to be able to gain 8 life back. So my opponent's going to hit me for 8 down to 4, which is a little bit brutal, but yeah, hopefully I'll be able to turn that around and win the game in a couple of hits. I guess I don't even have to attack with the... Okay, I was actually worried he had Touch of the Void. So yeah, I'm basically dead here. I guess he didn't have a land drop, so now I'm down to 5. Tide Drifter. I could play Tide Drifter and Tandem Tactics here, and then the next turn stabilize with Ghostly Sentinel. Otherwise, I could play Ondu Rising. I mean, I could just play Ondu Rising, gain some lifelink, then untap, play Tide Drifter, or if I draw a land, Ghostly Sentinel. That's probably a little bit better. There's some really minor reasons why you should play Ondu Rising on a Skyline Cascade or on an island, but it doesn't really matter. I'm not even going to discuss it because it's so silly. Oh, okay. Well, that should be lethal, right? That's 4, 7, 8, 9. Four, 7, 9. Yep. I mean, that was just a great draw by the opponent. Alright, so against this guy, I think I want like a Felidar Cub, just another 2-drop to block early on. And I can cut out... I do like Ondu Greathorn. I'll cut out a Cloud Manta, which is just not a very good blocker in this matchup. I could consider bringing in a Lithomancer's Focus, but it probably won't be necessary. Stonehaven Medic, I guess it blocks the Core Sky, not the Core Sky, the Core Castigator. Yeah, I could consider bringing this in as well. I'm okay cutting these Cloud Mantas because I don't think I'll really have a problem winning the game in the air. It's just getting to that point. This is a pretty bad hand, and while I kept a similarly slow hand last game, now I know I'm playing against an aggressive deck, so I'm going to mulligan it and try and find one with 2-drops and 3-drops. So this is pretty sweet. I'm going to basically bottom any non-land card and keep any land. But yeah, alright, we got a nice hand. Can play Fortified Rampart into McKinley Patrol, into Lantern Scout. A little bit awkward because I can only trigger my life gain once, but that's okay. Yeah. I'd rather do it this way because I'd rather be attacking with my McKinley Patrol than my Lantern Scout. I'm looking to draw land so I can get Ondu Rising out there at some point, even Wavewing Elemental, but I do have 19 lands in the deck, so there are still 16 lands left. 50% of the deck is land. Alright, so I mean, he's got the Sandstone Bridge. I don't really care too much about that. I mean, he'll probably attack. Makes sense to. He might have a Sure Strike again, or a Touch of the Void, but he might not have anything. Alright, so get to charge on in there for 2 Vigilant lifelink damage. It's nice to pick up a couple extra life points. I mean, as we saw in the last game, it could really be relevant and matter. If I draw a land, I probably won't play Ondu Rising next turn. Probably try and wait until I hit a 6th land, just because this game's pretty stalled out, so I may as well fish for the extra 4 life. Well, definitely not going to do anything now. I guess I could attack with the McKinley Patrol. I'll hold it back, just because I mean, yeah, I don't really, I mean, this is just a 3-2 now, so it's not any worse for me to trade the Lantern Scout for the McKinley Slide Runner than the McKinley Patrol. So yeah, now when I draw my 5th land, I'm definitely going to play Ghostly Sentinel before Ondu Rising. First of all, you just want Ghostly Sentinel out there instead. I guess that's a reason not to trade yet. It's tempting to not trade here because I have Ondu Rising, plus this thing is only able to attack when he plays lands. So, that being said, it is a constant source of 3 damage. Yeah, I mean, I'm only going to get lifelink from Ondu Rising once anyway, so it's only going to gain me 3 life at most. And if he plays like a 5-drop creature that blocks, then I won't even be able to do so. It was questionable whether I wanted to trade the McKinley Patrol or the Lantern Scout, but I decided on the McKinley Patrol because Lantern Scout can get in for an extra 1 point of damage, aka 1 point of lifelink, with Ondu Rising, and as I've been mentioning, the thing that really matters the most in this game is staying alive against a more aggressive deck like I'm playing. So I figure my opponent here is considering using a card like Touch of the Void to get rid of the Rampart or develop out the board with like a 4 or 5 drop creature or something. But it's kind of speculation. I guess not, because there's a Core Castigator and a Reckless Cohort. Alright, so now I wish I had the McKinley Patrol back, but oh, here we go. Got a nice Ghostly Sentinel action going on. Pass the turn, and I'll probably trade the Lantern Scout for the Castigator here. If he attacks with it. I mean, that would take away his ally, so the Reckless Cohort would just have to swing recklessly next turn. Oh god. Alright, you got it, sir. I mean, this isn't so bad unless my opponent has more creatures. Basically just gets to hit me for 3 this turn. But down the road it could be pretty annoying. Hopefully I'll draw a land here. Courier Griffin. Alright, I'll play a Courier Griffin here. I still would like to get the attack in with the Ondu Rising, get the lifelink in. Plus, gaining life, the later in the game that you do it, the better it is, because your opponent doesn't know about it, so it could really swing a race. So even if I do draw a land, there's a good chance that I'll just play my Wavewing Elemental first and then play the Ondu Rising, just so that I can get a hit in for, what, 11 or 10 damage with my flyers. That would be really sweet. Alright, another ally is a little bit annoying. So my opponent's going to be able to hit me for 7 here, unless I want to chump block, which I don't think I do. But I think this game is still well within my reach. The fact that my opponent is thinking here is a little bit scary. Got 1 and a red up, so there are a number of things that could be. It could be Tandem Tactics, it could be Lithomancer's Focus, it could be Sure Strike. It's probably not Outnumber because that would have happened pre-combat, but it still could be Outnumber on the Fortified Rampart. So yeah, definitely a bunch of different cards that could be represented here. Tandem Tactics, I bet. Oh, Sure Strike. Okay. Sure enough. That is striking. Okay, down to 13 here. Angelic Gift. Alright, let's do that. Ooh, Tide Drifter. That's pretty sweet here. Okay, so now I can hit for 6, 7, 8, and then kill my opponent next turn. I'm slated to, what, take 4, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, minus 4. So 4, 8, 11, 13 at most. If they remove one of my creatures. Alright, well, I think it's a risk worth taking. That my opponent's one card in hand plus one card on the top of their library isn't anything that can beat me here. I could have also just played Andu Rising here. Maybe it would have been a little safer. I would have gained 8 going up to 21. My opponent would have traded probably the Lantern Scout for the Andu Champ. Yeah, I could definitely see that having been a safer line, considering that this line of play makes the next turn kind of not matter. So it doesn't really matter that it puts me in a better chance to draw a land here and get my Andu Rising going. But yeah, I mean, we'll see what the opponent has to offer here. This is definitely a riskier line of play, going with the Angelic Gift. I guess I definitely got kind of rewarded by drawing a Tide Drifter. This is really the best card that I could draw there, because any white 2-drop doesn't do me any good. So yeah, now that I think about it more, I definitely should have played Andu Rising last turn. That would have put me in a position where I could have attacked with the Ghostly Sentinel and the Courier Griffin. Hit him for 3 less down to 10, and then set up an Andu Rising for the next turn. Or sorry, set up. I guess I'll have Wavelength on. I don't know. Maybe it is. Maybe it was a good play. Oh no, I would have attacked with this. It would have traded with the Andu Champion. Then this turn I would have a Ghostly Sentinel back to block 8, 11, 13 power, and I would be at 21. It'd be a different game. I don't know if that would be that much better, but apparently my line worked out. It was risky, but it's not like it was incredibly risky. It was still quite a reasonable line of play. Alright, so now we need another decision on what we want to sideboard. I don't know if I really want any changes. I don't think I want to bring in a Cloud Manta. I guess I could bring in a Cloud Manta for a land. Take out like Bladed Cataract. Yeah, I don't mind that. On the draw, I'll have a better chance of hitting my lands on time. And I might want to put the pressure on. Plus, I mean, a Cloud Manta still isn't a terrible blocker. It could trade for pretty much most of his creatures that we saw. I mean, it could trade for an Andu Champion, even a Hero of Gomafada if he doesn't have an ally to trigger it. But yeah, my opponent definitely has a really strong allies deck. This hand's okay. It's not great, but we'll see what we can do with it. Ooh, Felidar Cup here is a great draw, because I could either block with it this turn, or I could just wait until next turn and then I could play Lantern Scout, and then the following turn I'll have Tandem Tactics, which should be nice. I should probably, well, yeah, I should probably just block here, because I don't know what my opponent's going to play here. Probably something. And ooh, there's a Tightening Coils. Yeah, I think in the end I would have rather had Lantern Scout, but if my opponent played something like McKindy Patrol, then it would have been really bad. Reason why I'm saving the Tightening Coils is so that I can get a turn where I can play Tandem Tactics and Tightening Coils. Not really sure why my opponent wouldn't attack here. I guess if they don't have anything to block with. Alright, perfect target for the coils. And I don't really think that I think I'm just going to block, and if my opponent plays like a... I guess Sure Strike would still get me. I don't think I'm really gonna use my tandem tactics to try and get past the Core Castigator alive. I guess I can survive like a Touch of the Void or something. Yeesh, that's pretty brutal. Alright, so hopefully... Okay, perfect. Drew a land. That's step number 1. I think I'm gonna... Yeah, I think we're gonna go for Clutch of Current. Well, I could just attack, and if my opponent blocks, Tandem Tactics and Sheer Drop. And if not, then I can just play Clutch of Currents, bouncing that. Let's do that. I mean, because if my opponent blocks here, then that's just great for me. If my opponent blocks here, then that's also fine for me. I don't really see why my opponent would block, but you never know. And the reason why it doesn't make sense to leave this back to block anyway is because it'll be my only creature, and I know my opponent's best play last turn was to play Core Entanglers. It's probably going to be their best play next turn too, so they'll just play it, tap my Lantern Scout, and I'll be pretty sad. This is, for some reason, a tough decision on my opponent's part. To me, it seems pretty clear that they would just not block. But, okay, that works too. Okay, so now I still have Tandem Tag. Not really sure exactly what I do now. Hopefully the opponent will... Hopefully I'll draw land, I think. I think that's what I'm hoping for. And now I could just Ondu Rising, make a 7/7 and attack with it. I could just Sheer Drop this and make another, or make this a 6/6. I could just attack with both and Tandem Tactics. He's probably not going to block though. That wouldn't be too effective. Yeah, maybe I'll just Ondu Rising here, make this thing 7/7, attack for 7 lifelink, then get hit back for at least 6, then be able to Sheer Drop the Entanglers and kind of hold back on defense. Alright, that's the plan here for the next couple of turns anyway. Don't really have a better line of play. I could Sheer Drop this turn, but that doesn't help me much. I still have a little bit of life to work with. My opponent plays a Resolute Blade Master. I can just chump with the Lantern Scout. I don't really have bad draws in my deck. I can cast any of the cards. Even my 2-drops are helpful here. Another land would mean that I can cast Sheer Drop and still attack with this thing. Alright, that's fine. It's kind of what I expected anyway. And there's Fortified Rampart showing up. Okay. So my opponent has 3 cards in hand and 3 mana up. But I think I'm pretty safe to attack here. I just don't really need the Awaken on this, and I'd much rather play a 2-drop and then tap my 7/7 and make a 3/3 here. I suspect my opponent will trade. Don't really have many other options, but even if they do, then I have Fortified Rampart plus Sheer Drop to completely negate his offensive, unless they have a pretty strong, like, I can't really even imagine what they have. I guess Sure Strike plus Lithomancer's Focus doesn't even get the job done because I still have Tandem Tactics, and I'm at 11 life, so not really sure what my opponent can do here. Alright, just take the damage. Not exactly sure what the opponent's thinking about. There's no like protection from white card in this format, so that should be fine. And then Fortified Rampart, a nice blocker here. And that puts me in a pretty good spot. I don't really know what my opponent's got in hand. That their best play last turn was just Core Castigator pass, but I don't really mind it. There aren't that many end of turn instants they could play. I mean, there's like Outnumber, but not sure what else. Guess it's Outnumber. Kill the Lantern Scout. But yeah, they probably want to save Outnumber. It's not like they can really attack next turn. Okay, I mean, I don't think that there are any other red or white instants that I should be thinking about. I guess there's like Encircling Fissure, but that doesn't matter at this point in the turn. Let's do a quick Gatherer search. For a red or white instance, because my opponent's clearly at the table here. Sometimes when you're playing online, you don't know if your opponent is thinking or if they are just like getting a sandwich, but when they mention or when they tap a mana, then you know that they're just sitting there and they're actually thinking. Okay, and then types instant CMC less than or equal to. Ooh, that is a savage draw here. I'm still looking up. Okay, there's Encircling Fissure, Gideon's Reproach. It was End Step. So the only card that it could be is Outnumber. So I'm going to play this Blighted Step, and then I am just going to go ahead and attack with both my creatures. Maybe I don't attack with Lantern Scout. What if this is Encircling Fissure? 6, 8, yeah, I'm still okay. I guess, yeah, because this leads my opponent to want to double block and then you get me with an Outnumber, but I'll have Tandem Tactics. I guess, yeah, playing around Encircling Fissure is probably worth it. I guess there's also Royal's Retribution, which would be kind of great for me, because I would just be able to completely eat that, because they would probably only block with one. If it were Royal's Retribution, then I would want to attack with Lantern Scout. I guess the only way I don't want to attack with Lantern Scout is if it's Royal's Retribution. Okay, so there's the double block. If it's double block plus Royal's Retribution, then I could be in trouble. If it's just Outnumber, I think I'll play the Tandem Tactics. I guess it could be Gideon's Reproach as well. Oh, Sure Strike. So that's 9 total damage. Okay. The 3-for-1 is okay with me. Okay, so it's Sure Strike plus Outnumber. Because I know that my opponent had Outnumber from last turn. Because that was actually just the only card that it could have been. Not really sure what there is to think about at this point. You've kind of played your hand. Oh, is this another Sure Strike? That's a little miserable. So yeah, there's nothing I can do here. I'm just getting stricken. Alright, in that case I can just sacrifice the Blighted Step. And gain some extra life that way. I guess there's some consideration to keeping the Blighted Step around to cast a 6-drop. But I think I'm okay. Either way, I mean, that was still a pretty valuable turn for me, being able to trade a land for double Sure Strike. That's fine, especially because I mean I had already gotten value out of both Clutch and On Rising, even though they weren't full cards worth of value. All right. I wonder if my opponent still has the outnumber that I knew that they had to have. Huh. Maybe that was a mistake. Maybe I should have just taken the 4 here. And waited until I can have Tandem Tactics up. Okay, so my opponent just doesn't have the card that I was thinking of. I think I want to hold back with this until I get to a situation where I can get 2 things off of a Tandem Tactics. Or I mean, I could just draw a Shadow Glider. That'll work. It's a pretty solid game, even if I end up losing. Oh, here's the outnumber that I knew that my opponent had the whole time. I'm a little surprised that they didn't pull the trigger on the Fortified Rampart. There's still no real reason to trade the Lantern Scout for the Castigator. And concession. No concession. We're still playing. All right. Not some pretty weak draws going down the stretch here for me, but we'll see. Hopefully I'll be able to. I mean, my deck is full of flyers and stuff, so definitely a lot of good chances to win the game here. Definitely going to hold on to that. Is there any reason for me to play a land? I think I have Blighted Cataract left in my deck, right? No, I took that out, didn't I? I don't think I have any draw spells in my deck. I guess I have an Angelic Gift. Alright. I think it's worth playing 1 land out. I won't need 2 lands for 2 different triggers off of the Skyline or Skywing Elemental, whatever it's called. Super awkward game here. I hope that my opponent's just holding lands in hand. I can't really imagine what else they'd be holding and not playing here. I guess like Rolling Thunder. There's Ondu Greathorn. I guess that's a better reason for me to hold lands. And I do still have my McKinley Patrol in deck, so it sort of makes sense to hold on to the Lantern Scout for now. Alright, let's play a land. Alright, perfect. Stasis Snare, take that out, and it's Cloud Mana time. Five cards in hand. He's got to have another answer. Wow. Alright, won the match. It was a close one. It's definitely an interesting match, and yeah, I'll see you guys in the next round. Hey guys, here for round number 2, trying to defeat people with flyers and walls. Guess that's kind of the name of the deck, flyers and walls. With a couple of Ondu Risings in the middle. My first round opponent had a pretty strong deck. I definitely drew well enough to win, and towards the end of the second game, or the last game, I was a little bit nervous, but perfect draw right there. So I get to set up the defenses and then play some flyers. Let's get over it. Yep, this is where we want to be. Would like a couple more lands, but you take what you can get, right? Well, not a land, but definitely pretty much the next best thing. One of the better cards in my deck, plus it will enable me to get a Cloud Manta out. Of course, my opponent could have a Spell Shrivel. I knew that was an opportunity. I had thought of the possibility of just playing Fortified Rampart instead, but it's so bad to play Fortified Rampart there and play around a Spell Shrivel, because then if my next turn I draw Cloud Manta, then I just don't get to play my Eldrazi Sky Spawner until much later in the game. My opponent just cashing in Royal Spout there to trade 2 damage is a little strange, but it also sets them up an extra... Oh, there we go. That's a solid enough reason, because my opponent's going to be able to hit me again this turn. I think it's worth taking the land out here. And I'm still alright trading the 2 damage here, because I do have these walls to come down and eventually Ondu Rising, and I mean, I can use Ondu Rising for 2 mana as well. I think it's worth, well, trying to decide if I should just play Cloud Manta or set up my defense. I'm going to play the Fortified Ramparts because it does play around counterspells much better. Sheer Drop was a great draw, being able to take out my opponent's 5th land when it seems like they clearly needed it. There's a Stasis Snare, so it's kind of did what I wanted, because otherwise I would just be trading the Cloud Manta for Stasis Snare for the full turn. Another no play on 5 mana here for the opponent. It's like Stasis Snare is a better card to trade for than Spell Shrivel, because Stasis Snare you can play at any time, but still. Alright. So my opponent's got all the clutches. Clutching all of the currents. Courier Griffin. And it's bad to trade here because I have Ondu Rising, which I might want to play eventually. That's a weird attack. I will take it. I suspected it might mean something like that. That's a little annoying. Well, let's play another one. Alright, I wonder if my opponent's going to attack here. Okay, perfect. Okay, there's a Tandem Tactics, which is sweet. I think I'm still just going to play this thing. No. My opponent didn't just make this unblockable and attack with it too last turn. So we probably have something Playing McKinney Patrol doesn't do me any good, but getting Vigilance does do me some good. Getting the 4/4 really doesn't help much this turn. Yeah, I think I'm just going to play Handu Rising. I'm going to play McKinney Patrol first. And hopefully this will work. And we're hoping for no Royals Retribution. We do get retributed. Oh, there we go. I could have held up Tandem Tactics instead of played out the McKinney Patrol. Especially because I really did kind of suspect that. Yeah. I mean, because my opponent does 2/2/1, I really blow that card out by so much. Yeah. I think I kind of screwed that one up. Oh well. Let's see, what do we want to play here? Probably a Lithomancer's Focus instead of... I mean, the Fortified Ramparts really aren't that good in the matchup. They're not bad. McKinney Patrol is probably really bad, though. Because he's not going to get in. Oh, I should bring in Felidar Cub. Take out a Rampart. I'm looking at Inspired Charge here. Maybe not. My opponent's deck looks better than mine, to be honest, but we'll see. I probably could have won that last game. This is an interesting hand. I have a Blighted Cataract, so I'll get some stuff going eventually. I'm gonna mulligan it. It's not very good. Let's keep the land. I just didn't really get any of the good exchanges in the last game. Perhaps I could have, and if I had, then I would have won the game. But I mean, I think the Fortified Rampart play was the correct play. Or sorry, the Eldrazi Sky Spawner play on turn 3 was correct. But it definitely would have worked out better if I had played the Fortified Rampart that turn. My opponent probably still would have spell shriveled, but... And then also, if I had not played the McKinney Patrol, I think that there's it's a high upside to play the McKinney Patrol, but since I know that my opponent has something, and I saw Royals Retribution in the draft, it makes sense for me to try and play around it there. And I didn't see my last opponent play a Royals Retribution, so yeah, a little disappointing. Either way, a new game, more Cloud Mantas. This time I'll actually get to play them on time, and they'll start doing some work. Interesting. So my opponent again could have Spell Shrivel up. Could have attacked with this and just gone for Tandem Tactics this turn. Interesting that my opponent chose not to trade there. I assumed that they had played Mist Intruder and didn't attack with it because they wanted to block my Sky Spawner, not because they really wanted to process. But I suppose that could mean that I'm getting Mercstridered here. I did see a whole bunch of those in the draft. Oh, there's a Cloud Manta. Should definitely be looking at what my opponent's exiling so that I can get a better picture of what they know about. Okay, so there's the Mercstrider that I was expecting. Just a little annoying, but it's fine. Probably leave this Sky Spawner back next turn, because I saw 2 Clutch of Currents. That's kind of annoying. Alright, let's play the Wavewing Elemental and pass. Because at least if my opponent does have a Clutch of Currents here, I'll be able to block and trade for a Cloud Manta. I do not like my position here, though. Ugh, that is so brutal. Well, I mean, as I mentioned, I think my opponent's deck is so much better than mine. I guess it honestly isn't that bad that I got ingested, because it's not like I could cast the Wavewing Elemental anyway. So right here I just have to I should block here, and I mean, my opponent waiting this long is bad for me, but I need to keep my guy around in order to win this game. But yeah, I mean, if my opponent has anything, then I'm just dead. Could be stuck on lands, maybe. No, not gonna buy it. I mean, there are worse draws than Tide Drifter here. Drawing a whole bunch of planes when I drew my 1 blue card is annoying, but you know. So now I'm just in that position where my opponent can cast any cards in their deck, and lands are really bad for me. Alright, well, I mean, this is just brutal. Basically every card that my opponent has played is better than every card in my deck. And I think I cannot win. Just need to draw my Planar Outburst right here. I didn't have Planar Outburst in my deck? Huh, who knew? Alright, that was a pretty good game, and definitely an interesting match. It's annoying to lose, but you know, the deck wasn't that good. It was fine. It was in a position where if I had made it to the finals, then I would have been pretty happy. If I had won, then I would have thought the deck really overperformed. But I mean, I just didn't have any rares, and I didn't even have a significant amount of the most powerful cards in the archetype, whereas my opponent did have the most powerful cards in the archetype outside of rares. I don't know. I don't think I really saw any rares. I guess I had a Lantern Scout, which is rare. But he behaved more like a 3-mana 3/2. That being said, I definitely could have won the first game, and I think that the play that made me lose the game, I messed up on, and I should have played it differently. That being said, if my opponent sees that I play, what's that card called? The Awakening, Andu Rising. If my opponent sees that I play Andu Rising for 2 instead of 5, then they might get suspicious and just Royal's Retribution one of my creatures. That being said, I think I'm still okay with that. So yeah, I think I probably should have won the first game. I was just so far ahead that it was weird that I ended up losing, but that's the game. So thank you guys for watching. Hope you enjoyed the videos. The first match was pretty cool. The second match was also a pretty interesting match. At least game 1 was. Game 2 I kind of just got stomped. But yeah, my opponent's deck was sweet. So thank you guys for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Have a wonderful day. Bye.